Well, hi everyone. Uh, I actually got interested in Sarawak and the Brooks about 7 years ago when I was first offered a possible job on the movie White Raja. So it took quite a while to get going, but I was actually in the department called Art Department, which actually takes care of what gets put on screen. So if you see something wrong on screen, historically, it's probably our fault. So I started reading right away, and I actually noticed pretty quickly that there's so much material, and there's a lot of material that doesn't jive together. One person will say this, another person will say that. So it takes a while to figure out what is what. So I think I finally have an answer for the both the flag and the coat of arms. The flag I actually looked into last year, and I came up to a satisfactory answer, which it's in the presentation. But the flag and the coat of arms are actually interlinked. I'm sure you guys have read quite a few books on it, and you've heard the different versions of a purple and red cross, a blue and red cross, a black and red cross for the flag. Well, it all comes down to the coat of arms. So let me just start off with the coat of arms then. So even if you go into Kuching itself, you'll see the top left picture is the coat of arms on the square tower. The next one to the right is the Charles Brooke Memorial, 1924. The next one over is actually a version you'll see on Wikipedia. It was created, I don't know, 2000, I think. Next row down, you'll see the coat of arms on the Fort Margarita and Brooke Gallery now. Then you'll see the Sarawak Gazette, at least one of the versions on the Gazette. The flag with the crown on it, which has confused a lot of people as well. The post office on the bottom. And then finally, the very rare coat of arms, the one that came in very late, that was introduced in, as far as I know, 1939. So the first things to check for when we're talking about coat of arms, actually, I knew next to nothing before I started researching this. So I found out it's interesting that coats of arms actually meant you wear arms on a coat. I thought that was interesting. So the arms themselves, the heraldic award is shown here. This is actually the funeral procession of Queen Elizabeth I. And what I found interesting about this is that this guy here is actually holding the royal helm. And then on top of the helm, you have the crest. So the crest is actually the crown plus the lion plus the other crown. That's all considered the crest. And what's interesting about this is that this guy is actually Ralph Brooke. So he's a Brooke himself. So I'm not sure, well, I knew next to nothing about coats of arms. So I came in with the usual idea of that you have a surname and then there's one coat of arms, which apparently is not the case. So I found out pretty quickly that there are many different kinds of Brooke arms. So these are just a few that are scattered around. You can find them on the internet, but they're all real people. They all have a origin back in the past, and then they can get passed down through family lines. So, and then I found out they actually are registered at the College of Arms, and they actually issue a grant, and then this allows you to bear the arms. So just breaking down the components, say if we take the what is known as the arms of the Brooke Raj from the Wikipedia version. It actually has an interesting take on the coat of arms. So it has a gold shield, but it has a little silver piece on top. And then the torse, you can see the torse is between the crest and the helmet. There's no helmet here, but they have the torse as silver and sable black. So just getting you guys to know that. So the interesting thing to note is that this coat of arms, according to the College of Arms, does not exist. There's only one Sarawak coat of arms which is registered in the British College of Arms, and that is the Crown Colony of Sarawak's coat of arms. There's only one other coat of arms that is in the registry, and that is the personal arms of Sir James Brooke. So when it comes to Sarawak and the Brookes, there's really only two arms that are in the books. And the Crown of Sarawak doesn't have anything to do with the Brookes, actually, other than it continued on the same style. What's interesting about the personal arms of James Brooke is if you look at the date. So this is an interesting date, 1848. I'm sure everybody knows the date James left England. It was 1838. So he actually didn't get a coat of arms, according to the College of Arms, until 1848. So it brings us a question of what was he doing before that? Because there's actually mentions of him using a coat of arms before that. There's 3 mentions before 1848, where he actually talks about the Brooke family crest. So in 1843, after he's hired Henry Wise as a political agent, Henry Wise wanted to come in and become his business partner as well. So here is James complaining about Henry Wise trying to be a business partner. So Henry Wise has been most rash and precipitate, and nothing shows it more than the gingerbread nonsense of bringing Birmingham tokens with my crest to pass current here. You will not be surprised to learn that I have prohibited all tokens, base deteriorated tokens. So if you look at it, it's actually it's I guess not a great artist, but it's supposed to be a badger. So the interesting thing is that badger is not the same badger as this. So the crest actually changed. So the next time James Brooke talks about using his crest was when, after he finds out about the assassination of Bedruddin and Raja Muda Hasim. So he wrote to his friend Jack, a brutal and bloody murder has been committed in Brunei, where the Sultan has treacherously massacred Muda Hasim and near all his family. The signet ring, my own crest and gift to him, that Bedruddin sent to me in his dying moments, is a pledge not to be false to him in death. So again, he refers to the crest. So the crest is just the part on top. It's not the whole thing. It's another thing. When I was reading, I thought it meant the full coat of arms, but it's not. It's literally just the part on top. There's no description there, but we know from the token that it's actually a standing badger, also known as a Brock. So just to continue the timeline, after the assassination, July 1846, James Brooke and the British capture Brunei. He reinstalls the Sultan, and the Sultan agrees to give Sarawak its independence. This is the August 3rd, 1846 agreement. By December 1846, Rodney Mundy has gotten the orders to take possession of Labuan. Then in May 1847, James has become Her Majesty's Commissioner, and he's been told to go to Brunei to negotiate a much more extensive contract settling the issues with Labuan and commercial treaties, as in port fees. And during this time, the India Committee, the Secret India Committee, actually advised James to try to get Brunei to start using a flag that can be registered, and you can see it. You can see it there. It's what they suggested was a red flag with a white square in it. But James did not have a good opinion of Brunei. He didn't think they could handle a boat registry because they simply don't have administrators. So he just kind of crossed it off and said, no. And he proceeded and did the rest of the treaty. So after he comes out, I skipped over this part, but he has a little fight with Bellanini pirates on the Nemesis. But after that, he gets to Singapore, and in Singapore, he actually, finally the third mention of his crest comes up. So he actually donated books from his library to the Singapore Library. One of the series was called The Tales and Novels by Marie Edgeworth. And we found out about this because in the 100 years centenary of Singapore, an author made a note of this. He found one of these books, and it actually had the Brooke's crest, a badger with the legend James Brooke, Sarawak, Borneo, 1924. So, well, 1924 is the date he wrote about it. But the point is, it's another confirmation that the crest itself was a badger. No mention of a crown, no mention of a shield. So the question now comes up: was James Brooke using assumed arms before his official grant in 1848? And this is when it comes down to, we don't exactly have proof. In James's mind, the arms were not registered at the College of Arms, but there's two ways to be legal. You can also bear arms using an ancestral right. So he thought he had an ancestral right to these arms. So if we're looking around at all the Brooke arms again, there's one Brooke arm in particular that stands out right away because it looks exactly like the Sarawak coat of arms. These are the arms of Brooke of Norton Priory, and it's a very extensive line of the Brookes. Very, very popular. It's basically, it became a baronetcy, and it's still extant today. So they're up to the 12th baronet of the Brooke of Norton Priory, and it's still going today. What makes it interesting is the very first Brooke of Norton. The very first Brooke of Norton was Sir Richard Brooke. He was a Knight of Malta, commander of Mount St. John, Cleveland. Apparently it's by Yorkshire. My British geography, I don't understand it at all. I know Sarawak much better. But apparently this Norton is by Liverpool. So I was tempted to give him a Liverpool coat of arms, but
no, it's not by Liverpool.
Oh, it's not?
Sorry. Mount St. John, Cleveland isn't.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so he must have got around. Even the Knight of Malta bit, I don't know if he was made a Knight in Malta in England or if he was in Malta. The Knights of Malta became Knights of Malta only in 1530. So it seems pretty fast to be in England, but it's a little hard to tell. But in 1542, King Henry VIII made him the Vice Admiral of England. So basically the basically one of the top guys with the ships. 1544, they must have been fighting Scotland. Again, I don't know British history because he sacked and burnt Edinburgh. 6 May, he kept going. He captured a fortress in Inchgarvie Island using the galley in the bottom here. There's actually a picture of it. Galley Subtle. He used the same galley to go up the River Forth to Blackerness Castle, captured 3 ships. So he was quite proficient. Following the dissolution of the monasteries, he purchased an ex-monastery at the priory at Norton. Well, I spelled it wrong. In 1563, he became the Sheriff of Cheshire. 1662, his great-grandson, Henry Brooke, became the first baronet of Norton Priory. So this is a giant chain of Brookes all the way down from a very, very long time back. So if you take the journey of James Brooke, he went to Sarawak in 1739, came back in 40. He actually got power in 41, and he never went back until October 1847. So when he actually lands in England, Henry Keppel and Henry Wise meet him. They let him know right away that he's already going to become the governor of Labuan. He gets toured all around. He becomes a doctor of civil law at Oxford, freedom of the City of London, met with the Queen. He had his portrait painted by Alan Grant. He got his governor's uniform made. He made the flag. The flag raising ceremony, they mentioned he gave swords to the Datus. I'm pretty sure this is when he would have got those made as well. He also visited the Herald's office to confirm his coat of arms. So this is when the trouble came up. He discovered his coat of arms were not registered to any of his known relatives. So basically make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah. So his known relatives at the time are all back here. So you have James, and then his father Thomas, his father Robert, and then there's one more Father Robert. And what's actually interesting about this is that no historians have been able to dig this family tree back any further than this. Nobody knows. So there's no actual way to figure out if James Brooke actually was a member in the line of the Norton Priory or not. Right now, I have not made a connection. So I put a picture of Gertrude Jacob here. So she wrote one of the first biographies on James, 1875. And in her biography itself, she already got as far as everybody else did. So it's actually quite interesting that no one has actually figured this out yet. So if we go back to James. So what a lot of people don't know is that Charles Brooke was actually in England at the same time. He was officially a member of the HMS Wolverine, but Keppel had moved him under him. So Charles Brooke himself was on the trip back to Singapore and Sarawak in 1848. So he would have been in London at the time. And this quote you see here was used by, I'm not sure if you've read the whole theory by W.J. Chater. He's a man in 1964 who theorized that the first flag of Sarawak was a blue and red cross. So he found a letter from 1880, and he actually took a very different interpretation of what I'm taking. I think I'm right. But so, because Chater actually didn't, he actually made a lot of mistakes in his assumptions. He did not know that Charles Brooke was in England at this time. So the Sarawak, so basically what I think happened is simply James already knew that he was going to become a knight. So if he's going to become a knight, what I think they did is they I think what they did is he put his coat of arms that he wanted to, a new coat of arms, on standby until he got the knighthood, and then he would send an okay, then the whole thing would process. So what I think happened is he was very attached to the red and black cross of the Norton Priory, and he actually, this is when they arranged, they must have arranged the arms to be the blue and black cross, but the flag, the red and black flag, got approved at this point, is what I think this quote is actually trying to say. Chater actually took this as Charles himself getting this approval in 1870. So it's a very different context. So when they get to Singapore, he gets his knighthood, his expected knighthood. So he's invested with the Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, the Civil Division. So it's the red circlet, and then this 3-crown version. It's not the military one. And then he actually got the knighthood on the 22nd of August. The Earl Marshal's warrant for basically, I've talked to the College of Arms to try to get more information. So the part of the process is an Earl Marshal will initiate the process, and he initiated the process November 1st, and then the professor I was talking to was suggesting that it probably began in October or earlier. So what I'm thinking is what happened is that once he became a knight, he sent a letter back to England, which started the process, the go-ahead process, is what I think. This is before steamships, so it was still around the 2-month mark for the sailing ships if you take the overland route. Sorry. So this is what the actual, if you look up Burke's Landed Gentry, it gives you one description of the coat of arms. It gives you the official blaze in the shield, or gold across engrailed per cross, indented azure, blue, and sable, in the first quarter and as 12 of the second. So in other words, it's a cross divided by a cross. The outer side here is engrailing when it curves down. The inside, when it's a straight like this, is indented. And I've done something a bit strange here. I've used a very light color of blue. I've actually recreated this myself. I've used a light color of blue because when I use a darker color of blue, it blends right into the black, and you can't see the differentiation, the contrast. So the coat of arms, the College of Arms does not regulate shades of color. When they say azure, all that means is blue. So the actual expression of the blue is up to the artist or the patron himself. The crest is on an eastern crown of gold, a brock ducally gorged. So this crown, basically there are different types of crowns, and one of the types of crown is called an eastern crown. This is one representation of an eastern crown. The other eastern crown with the curvy points is just another expression of an Eastern crown. It's perfectly acceptable as well. And then if you say ducally gorged, then you use a ducal crown and then put it onto the badger like that. So I'm not an artist. I can just kind of put things on screen. An artist would do a much better job. But the interesting thing about talking to the College of Arms directly was that at the College of Arms, there is an actual illustration. They won't send it over email or let you see it because I guess they're afraid of you copying it or copyright or something. I'm curious if you go to the office itself, maybe they'll let you see it in person. I'm not sure. But this information is new because it doesn't show up in Burke's Landed Gentry. So the blazon is accompanied by an illustration of the arms and crest with the motto Dum Spiro Spero, surrounded by the circlet insignia of the Order of Bath Civil Division. So interestingly enough, the motto isn't part of the official blazon. And being decorated by the circlet and the award is also not part of the official blazon. But it turned up in the illustration. And the other thing about this is the last time this coat of arms is ever associated with James Brooke. There is no more evidence he ever used it again. I think it would just put in a book and put aside is what I think happened. I really think he liked the other coat of arms. The next piece of evidence we can find is actually in the Brooke archive. The seal of Lindu. So Charles, I'm not sure. It could be based on the coat of arms, or it could just be based on the flag. Probably the flag because it's not engrailed, or I don't know. This is the only other thing that comes close to the coat of arms. So this might be James Brooke's badge or seal. It's the circlet with Dum Spiro Spero and the badger standing. The only person to use his badge was John Brooke. John Brooke Johnson, John Brooke. Everyone knows who he is, right? Okay. So he used it for 2 years. And what I've learned from heraldry rules is you are allowed to use another person's badge to show allegiance to that person. So it's not assuming arms. You're just using it to show allegiance to James Brooke is what the message I'm kind of getting from this. This, if you go to the church and sheep store, there are 2 stained glass windows there. One of them is shows this one. So what happened is when James Brooke died in 1868, his close friend Arthur Knox led the way to commissioning the stained glass window. So this is the coat of arms he used in the stained glass window. He did not use the British one, he used this one. So I think the best way to describe this is as arms of sovereignty. So by this point, James saw himself as a sovereign ruler of an independent country. So he's not using his British arms, he's using the Sarawak arms as a sovereign ruler. I think it's probably his decision because, well, there's only one other thing supporting it, is he picked out his spot where he wanted to be buried. So if he did that, perhaps he did some more preparations, saying which coat of arms to use. This is just a guess. So then we come to the weird stuff. So we have, well, let me go back to the description. So this is gold. Like if I wrote up the blazon myself, because there is no College of Arms for Sarawak, so, and it's not registered with the British College of Arms. So gold across engrailed per pale, gules and sable, crest or brock proper, motto Dum Spiro Spero. So cross engrailed per pale. So engrailed just means engrailed. Per pale just means divided down the center. But this is the one that's thrown everybody off. So even Runciman used this description in his biography of Sarawak. She's just so emphatic about it, and it's such a popular book. So Mrs. McDougall is describing the flag hoisting on the 21st of September, 1848, and she's doing it a few years later, but she's very emphatic. She says, the Sarawak flag is a red and purple cross out of Sir James Brooke's Armorial Shield on a yellow ground, yellow being the royal color of Borneo. So what I'm thinking is she may have been told it was a cross per pale, and she might have heard purple. That's one of my only guesses. Chater also, W.J. Chater in 1964 didn't like the description either, and he decided it was a blue and red cross. He gave a whole bunch of reasons why, and he's wrong in many, many places. I don't think we have time to go through. But he does have some interesting evidence that's hard to beat. He said Charles ordered a change from blue bunting to black in 7 May 1870. And then he also says all other authors for the next 20 years also described the colors of the cross on the flag as being blue and red. And the only eyewitness was Mrs. McDougall, the only eyewitness to write about it. So if we keep chasing the McDougalls down, we actually come up with some more quotes. So on the very next page in her letter to Charlie, when we were at Singapore during the winter of 1849, Papa had a pulpit and reading desk chairs and a painted glass east window made with the cross of Sarawak flag, deep blue and red on a yellow ground for the center light. So all of a sudden she's changed to deep blue, but she's also talking about the east window of St. Thomas Church. So it's this one right here. This is the one facing basically the river, down the river. And then Reverend McDougall puts in his piece. The east window is of colored glass and given by my friend Mr. Jackson, the assistant resident in Singapore. The central light will represent the Sarawak cross, a red and purple cross on a golden ground. So again, we're back to purple. And to make things even more confusing, in 1892, we have this quote where from one of the missionaries, Mr. Perham, a Dayak requested that he should get a robe in the color of the Sarawak flag, a combination of blue, yellow, and red. He thought that would keep the people in proper awe of him. So there's something going on with the Anglican mission and the colors. And it might have something to do with this. I learned so much about arms. Not only are there secular arms, there are ecclesiastical arms. So once Reverend McDougall became Bishop of Labuan and Sarawak in 1855, he was entitled to have his own arms. So this is what he did. The McDougall crest is the lion rampant, and this is the McDougall motto, victory over death, I think. So the personal arms get put on this side, and the arms of the diocese get put over here. So for some reason, he used a red and blue cross to represent Sarawak. So again, very persistent. But there's a whole problem with the blue-red theory, is that Mrs. McDougall was not the only eyewitness. Henry Keppel was there himself at the flagpole. Mrs. McDougall was across the river. She wasn't up at the mission house, like Chater said, because the mission house wasn't built yet. She was actually living at the courthouse. So he says, a new flag which the Raja had brought from England, this is why I know the flag was made in England, was then unfurled for the first time, displaying a black and red cross on a yellow field. This was to be henceforth the national flag of Sarawak. So right there, it's kind of proof right there. There's one. There's a second one. It was on a fine day in summer of 1849 that I again found myself in Sarawak River. Our Sarawak flag, a golden ground with a black and red cross, waved over the stern as we passed between the houses of the Malay town. So this is Charles Grant in his very first year in Sarawak. He was there until 1862. He knew what he was talking about. Then we get to this one. Frederick Boyle and his brother actually came to Sarawak in 1863. And not only did he write in a magazine article, the flag is a cross, half red, half black on a yellow field, he also did color paintings of the flags. So this one is obviously a little too hard to see. This is Fort Kuching. If you're at the Astana looking across, this Fort Kuching became Square Tower in pretty much exactly the same position. This steeple here is St. Thomas. This steeple, we don't know. I think it might be the barracks, but that's just my guess. He also went to Fort Emma in Kanowit. So again, we have another flag. So can we tell the color? Kind of, maybe. It's kind of black, kind of blue. If we compare it to the uniforms, the uniforms are actually dark blue uniforms. So we don't know if he's just being inaccurate in his painting. It's on purpose. Maybe the flag faded. Don't know. But he did write it was half red, half black. Then finally, we have another one, 1866. This is all before the proposed change by Charles in 1870. So Cuthbert Collingwood, another tourist, basically. He was at Pending. So some larger craft also there. We're having a European build, lorchas, and flying the Rajah's flag, a broad cross, half red, half black, on a buff ground. So he changes yellow to buff, but it's close enough. The worst part about Chater's theory about the blue and red cross is that he mentions a letter that James Brooke wrote to Lord Palmerston to get approval for the flag. What I don't understand is why he didn't read the letter. What? Okay. Actually, let's go to McDougall first. McDougall, in her second book, Sketches of Our Life at Sarawak, she changes the color of the flag again. So she wrote purple, then deep blue, and now she's written black. This is published in 1882, so it's after the proposed change, but she's writing about an event in 1849. So in 1849, on the 24th of July, they left us as many as 18 Malay prahus, manned by from 20 to 70 men in each, the Sarawak flag, a red and black cross on a yellow ground, always at the stern. This picture is possibly the third color picture of the Sarawak flag. This is the Sarawak National War Song. It was written in 1848. And I think this boat is actually supposed to be the barge that was given to James in 1850 by the King of Siam. And he brought it back to Sarawak. So if you look closely at this flag is clearly black and red. But I don't know if this has been properly dated or not. We know the song. It's kind of weird that to give Captain Brooke credit after he's been disinherited, because he was considered a traitor. So I don't know if he would be included giving credit. So that's why I believe this is actually from before 1870. And finally, like I said, James Brooke himself wrote a letter to Lord Palmerston. He said, I hoisted a flag and recommended its adoption by all native prahus and other vessels belonging to this country, which is a yellow field with a cross per pale, red and black. So this is literally James Brooke writing to Lord Palmerston, the same letter Chater mentioned. He just didn't read the letter. It's bizarre. He even put a diagram of the flag, but it's been blown out. I don't know if there's a color picture somewhere, and it's been cut off on the side here. But you can see right here, you practice reading handwriting. To adopt the use of the flag, which is a yellow field with a cross per pale. This per took me a long time to figure out. There's actually copies of this letter that were printed for parliamentary reports, and it says a cross of pale red. So they actually switched per to of in the parliamentary papers. So the only author to ever republish the parliamentary papers correctly was Graham Irwin in his 19th century colonial book. So very few historians have actually taken a serious look at this stuff. The PER, I was helped out by Martin Laverty from the Brooke Trust. I thought it might be one of the words. Then I sent it to him. He confirmed, yes, PER. And then we figured out per pale is actually heraldry. That's what kicked me into this whole heraldry thing. And so that's where I got into the coat of arms. What's interesting is the order of the colors. We have red, then black. So if he's following heraldry rules, it literally means red is on the left, black is on the right. But you have to remember, it's been cut off. So this letter was actually sent to Lord Palmerston. Palmerston forwarded it to the Admiralty. The Admiralty, everyone made copies. So this is one of the copies right here. So he's actually put the hoist on the right side. So if we put the hoist on the black like this, it's yellow field, cross propellee, red and black. So, and if it's on the other way around, he would have listed black first, but he didn't. He listed it this way. And what that does is it matches exactly how the shield looks. So red, red, black, black with a sinister hoist. So the original coat of arms, just like the Norton Priory, is red on the left, black on the right. All right, so that's James. After James died, Charles became Raja in 1868. He left for England in 1869 to get married. They come back to Sarawak in 1870. This is more trouble. I present all the evidence. I'm not hiding anything. I don't want it to be true, but it looks like there's something going on. In her second book, published in 1934, she actually recalls that seeing the Sarawak flag for the first time on the Heartsease, the Raja's yacht, was dark blue and red cross spread over a pale yellow ground. So again, what's going on? Then I found this actually last week. This is Singapore Flagstaff, and some experts have dated it to be around 1870. And I have to agree because of the ships that I see. So the ships that are here, the Rainbow, which was a Sarawak vessel, was actually sold off to the Singapore government in 1866. So it's not a Sarawak flag. But the Royal is here, you can see, is a blue and red cross. So what's going on? Also, they've left Sarawak as a blue and red cross. So James intended it to be a black and red cross, or red and black, whichever way you're flying. Charles, we already know in 1870 orders blue bunting to be changed to black, so he wanted a black. So something happened in between, but it's not the will of the Raja, because the Rajas wanted them to be black and red. So I don't think we can say it's an anomaly, an aberration. I'm not sure. The other possibility is that the owner of this chart is Richard Arthur. He was another missionary, and he was a missionary for Siam. So maybe there's some kind of weird missionary connection, because apparently the chart is hand painted. I don't know if that means the publisher hand paints or it's kind of color by numbers when you get the chart yourself. I need some experts to tell me that. Then she goes on to describe the arrival at Kuching. What's interesting here is that she's still on the Heartsease. If you read the Two White Rajas on Banfield in gold, they actually put her on the Royalist, but I don't think it was, because even the newspaper articles say the Heartsease. But in her first book, 1914, she says this: as the Heartsease anchor was dropped, a large green barge which is the barge from Siam, used on state occasions, covering with an awning, manned by about 20 Malays and Dayaks in white uniforms, faced with black, their paddles painted in the Sarawak colors, yellow, black, and red. So in her first book, she's back to black, or she acknowledges them as the Sarawak colors. At the same time period, we know that Charles actually changed the flag. The original flag is black and red. And he, on advice of others, I don't know who, he just says others in the letter, he decided to diversify the flag. So he came up with a government flag where he added the crown, and then the one without the crown became the merchant flag. So government vessels used the one with the crown, merchant vessels used the one without the crown. And we know this happened before 1871 because apparently this caused a whole problem with the mission. The mission was not merchant and it wasn't government, so they complained. So what the solution was to give them their own flag. This flag was declared official 1st May 1871. So we know the crown was added before 1871. I'm thinking most likely he probably brought the new style of flag with him from England, because Margaret also mentions that he flew his pennant. He raised the pennant on the yacht in Singapore. Doesn't describe the pennant, he just says a pennant. We're all taking guesses. I was very happy to find this find. This one on the right is from a land grant. This is the seal of Charles Brooke Raja, but you can see it's too blurry to see. In the Trove archive from Australia, we get a nice, very clear copy. So if you look closely at the cross, you can actually see hatching. On the left, you see vertical lines. On the right, you see cross lines. So there's a whole system for heraldry where they actually tell you exactly how to read this. So the vertical lines is gules, which is red. The hatch lines are sable, which is black. So in other words, this crest is telling us right away that the left is red, the right is black. So even when Charles took over, his seal was red on the left, black on the right. So this is what his seal looks like in color. The torse I've colored red and gold, or gold and red, because there's a rule in heraldry where they don't actually mention the torse in the blazon. What they do is they take they use the principal colors. So in this case, it would be the first two colors listed, gold and red. So the torse should be gold and red, at least according to British rules. But considering this is an arms of sovereignty, he could literally do whatever he wanted. So it's a little bit, this is not guaranteed. This is, if we went by British rules, it would be red and gold. Then we have more examples from the Sarawak Gazette. Same thing. This shocked me when I first saw it, because Sarawak Gazette, if you look at the early issues, the left side looks darker, the right side looks lighter. But when you zoom in, you start to see that, well, my resolution on this one's pretty bad, but you start to see the cross hatching is on the left and the vertical lines are on the on the left, and the cross lines are on the right. It looks darker because more ink stays to the vertical lines. There's more surface area to follow. Same thing for the older crest, hatched lines, vertical lines. So the Sarawak Gazette was also, the first issue is 1870. This logo right here, the first issue shows up, there is no logo on the Sarawak Gazette for many, many years. But this small logo shows up as a government notice in 1870, and then it becomes the masthead 1877. Then by 1881, they decided to make it bigger. They kept it the same style. The 1887 is when they switched to a different style of shield. So as soon as you go to this, it's called eared, and then if you get the square corner, it's called cooped. And then they'll call this a French base. So it's a eared cooped shield, heater shield with a French base. And they put the logo on. At the same time area, around 1890, I think it is. It's a little, they don't put this one has a 19 on it, but they started issuing paper currency with properly printed in England. In this case, it's by the Perkin Bacon and Company Limited. And if you zoom in, you can see vertical lines on the left, cross lines on the right. So it makes it red, black. The shocking discovery was when I got to 1907. I have a giant hole in my archive of Sarawak Gazettes. If you guys have any way to fill this, I would love to see them. But by 1907, it changed. The left is cross-hatched. The right is possibly vertical lines. It's a bit low res, so it's hard to tell. So it means that the official switch from red, black to black, red happened during the reign of Charles, which was a bit of a shock. I wasn't expecting that. If we go to Viner, Viner decided to go back to the quarter cross. So horizontal lines in the Heraldry hatching means blue. So his seal went back to this style. So before he takes power in 1913, he actually starts writing to his friends. So there's letters in the archives. He wanted to use the crown that was in the British version, but he wasn't sure if he had the right to use the crown, and he was too afraid to approach the College of Arms because he didn't want to cause any trouble. So he just let the whole issue drop and decided to not use the crown, just use the badger. And confusingly, although the Sarawak Gazette switched to black-red, they made a new run of money with Viner's portrait, but they kept the same plate for the shield. Maybe it's a cost-saving thing, don't know. But this was in 1919. In the exact same year, we have this. We have black on the left, red on the right. So there's a weird mix of red, black, black, red. In 1928, after Charles became a Grand Cross Michael St. George, GCMG, he found out incidentally that he wanted to create his own order in Sarawak, so he created the Star of Sarawak. And when he was getting Bertram to inquire about what he could do and what he could not do, he found out that he was allowed to do whatever he wanted because these are considered arms of sovereignty. So then he said, oh, okay. But at the same time, so he starts putting the crown outside like this. So the crown he always wanted from 1913, he gets to use now. And he's translated the motto into Malay, Haraplah Selagi Bernafas. So it just hope, more, breathe, basically. And what he did is he also switched from his seal to an embossing seal. It's really hard to see on the specimens. So it's just Seal of State Sarawak. So all land grants after 1929 get an embossing grant like this. He stops using the blue and black seal. In 1929, new currency is made. This time it's printed by Bradbury Wilkinson. So you got a really scrawny looking badger. But most importantly, black is on the left, red is on the right. And then in 1939, we get to see this for the first time. So this is a new coat of arms. The first time we see it in the Brooke archive is when Anthony writes a letter from, it says Astana Stationery. So it's almost basically 1939 is the exact same year that he's declared Rajamuda. So it almost feels like Bertram and Anthony may have launched this purposely to be Anthony's coat of arms. But at the same time, in 1946, Viner does use this as well. But it's the war, so maybe I don't know. Actually, not 46, 42, sorry. So he writes a letter from Australia using this same. So so in 1928 he was actually told that he could have supporters because he was given the Grand Cross Michael St. George. He was told he's allowed now to have supporters. So he put the supporters in. So a Malay Datu of Yor and a Iban in gala attire. Officially, the star in the middle is supposed to be blue. It's a gold shield, black, red. The gems actually now have color. They didn't have color before. The middle one is black. This one is red. This one is red, and the rest is gold. But I've never seen a color version of this. Then finally, in 10 March 1947, we finally get to the last thing in the British College of Arms for Sarawak. You'll see this listing. So they call this crown an antique crown of the field. Antique crown of the field is actually the exact same, can be interchanged with the Eastern crown. So the crown didn't change at all. After the war, there was a stained glass window donated to Sheep Store. So this is the second glass window. They made a mistake. There's no other way to say it. This is not the right cross. This is not the right cross. There should be a cross per cross. Some message got crossed. Don't know. As well as that, there's a Lord Carnock, which was managing the church or something like that. He donated a reading desk to the church, and in the church itself, the reading desk, you'll see it has the Crown Colony of Sarawak coat of arms, but above it says Arms of the Brooke Raj, which it's not. So in 1961, it looks like Margaret Noble, which is responsible for most of the archive. She actually started researching independently, and what she did is she actually came up with the real design for James Brooke's shield, but slightly altered than what I've done. She's rotated the star. It's supposed to be pointed towards the crest. I'm not sure if that means it's supposed to be pointed towards the middle of the crest or just straight up. You need a heraldry expert to tell you for sure. Now this one is interesting. Suddenly, the crest we've been looking at for all these years gets a crown inside. I think this is also a mistake. Margaret Noble wrote another civil service employee, William Buck, nicknamed Money, and he swore that by looking at a banner in the Astana, it had a crown in the middle, so he drew the shield with the crown in the middle. But if he's looking at a banner, he's actually looking at a version of the flag, not the coat of arms. So he accidentally sabotaged Margaret Noble's research by assuring her that it was a crown inside. So this one, you actually see, if there's a notice board at the church, you don't see it with the correct colors for the torus. You see it with a red and black. And then whoever made the Wikipedia version just left this silver and silver, which is very wrong. This is actually against heraldry rules. You're not allowed to put silver and gold beside each other like this. Also, the torus is from the colors of the shield. It wouldn't be separate colors like this. So somebody along the line has created their own version here. And then, interestingly, the coat of arms used by the Brooke Trust has the black and red reversed. So back to what it was during second part of Charles and Charles Viner, but also with the crown inside. So that's basically it. So any questions?
Chris, thanks for that. We've got just a couple of minutes. If anybody has questions, please ask. Also, if you want to send email to Chris, if you send them to me, I'll forward them to Chris if Chris doesn't want to give us his email address.
I don't.
If you're happy to, by all means.
Okay, well, not in video, but separately, yes.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm interested in giving this talk was simply, I'm hoping that now that you're aware of what's going on when, I'm actually looking, because there is no College of Arms of Sarawak, the only way to prove any of this stuff is by actual physical samples. So I can't give accurate dates until we have physical samples with dates, and then we'll know when exactly something changed here and there. So if you have anything hiding in your collection, you might want to start looking at whether it's black left, right left, stuff like that.
A thought that crosses my mind, if we go right back to Mrs. McDougall, when she saw the flag across the river, you don't suppose that it was against the light, in which case the black might well appear to be purple?
Well, she wrote the letter in 1851. The ceremony was in 1848. Later on in the letter, she says that the flag flew over the fort of the town. She's actually not, the fort she's referring to is not the square tower. The fort, and it's not the Fort Margarita. There was a lower fort, which is at the base of Wyong Street. I don't know if you guys know Kuching. There's the Kuching River that used to be there. The fort was actually right at the Kuching River. It was there until 1859.
Yeah, we will look into that. We know there's a Wyong Street. There is a sungai there which was in done with rubbish, and then some said it because the scavenger cats used to find resident there. It was called Kuching. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late because there's a confusion of time. I thought it was 5 o'clock. By the way, I'm only the president of the Philatelic Society of Kuching, Sarawak. So I informed my member to attend at 5 o'clock. So I think we're back to 4 o'clock. Well, so one question about this is that, Chris, I didn't see the first part of your presentation. I hope I can see a YouTube recording. Secondly, the earliest crest appear should be on the land grant document. I wonder whether you have access to land grant document.
Yeah, I was actually there. Some have been donated to the Brooke Archive.
Yeah. So I need. I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your presentation. Was it in your presentation the crest that was printed on the land grant? I think some of the members, even from your BPS, also has it. Have you referred to that?
Yeah, the first land grant that's in the Brooke Archive is from 21st August 1883. It is using this, I call it a large simple crest. Let me just... It's this one right here. So there's a small simple crest and a large simple crest. So
yeah.
The large crest here is the first one that shows up. If you zoom in, this actually tells you the colors right here. So
yeah, the land grant actually was printed black on the paper, so I'm not sure about the color designations. But the first land grant actually was issued 1865.
Oh, okay.
So the earliest first page is 1865, and then the second one subsequent year, because apparently I think that time Charles, I'm not sure whether they have already solved the problem between James Brooke and Johnson Brooke and eventual successor, Charles Brooke. But 1865, somehow there is some economic changes, and they start subdividing the land and create land lots, and then start issuing land grant to the local.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't seen the logo. It'd be great to see it at high resolution, because
Yeah, still black and white, something like that. So I'll try to dig it out. Just for your information, there are a few revenue collectors within Sarawak in Kuching itself, namely John Teo, the immediate past president, Ronnie, Chai Fo Chin, and myself. So I'll try to dig it out.
because
Yeah,
the left side does look like it's darker, but it's not black, according to the heraldry hatching.
so when do you first get the designation, the color of the crest itself, actually?
The
First indication of the color for the coat of arms.
the very first instance is probably the Sarawak Gazette, actually.
You mentioned the color, or you have the actual?
Well, there's coding inside, hiding. So this shield, if you look inside, even though it's in black and white, these lines tell you vertical lines means it's red, cross lines means it's black. So it's actually telling you the color right there.
Hi, excuse me, it's John Higgins here. I'm looking at a land grant of 1871, and on the left-hand side of the shield, it's vertical lines, and on the right-hand side, it's cross-hatching.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, that's what I expected to see.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
Regarding the confusion over blue versus purple versus black, one of the problems is that different formulants are used for producing the dyes to make the flags. And I was just wondering whether tropicalization might change the long-term color depending on the recipe used to produce the black.
It's strangely enough, I think the black dye from Borneo was actually a better black dye. So, but the flag itself was made in England, and this is before synthetic dyes. Synthetic dyes came in 1912 or something like that. I looked into this because it was one of the possibilities I thought of. But
synthetic dyes came in. Oh, I'd have to check. The Germans invented synthetic dyes back in about the 1870s, 1880s, somewhere there. Right. Prior to that, there would have usually been either ground minerals but often the problem was that it's the binders that tropicalize. Right, so a black might be a carbon black or a lamp black, but if it's then bound with a suitable oil, the oil will tropicalize, and therefore you might get a significant shift in the color over a period of time.
I could believe that.
Yeah.
If you look at the dates for the McDougals, it's he actually got the window was ordered deep blue, but then he switches to purple. So this is by 1851 as well. That's when he consecrated the church. So yeah.
Can I just say very quickly, Chris, I'm going to have to leave. I've made Malcolm host.
Oh.
So at the end of the discussion, Malcolm, you'll be able to close it down and the recording will be safe. On the matter of stained glass, dark blue stained glass is very often, if you look at it, purple. Because it relies on the sun behind it coming through. So I think if somebody looks at the light on a dull day, the glass looks purple. but actually it will then show sometimes as dark blue. But fascinating talk, Chris. I'm sorry, I must be on my way. Malcolm, it's with you now for the rest of the session.
Okie dokie, no problems. Okay, cheers, Roger.
And then another friend of mine, Jerry Drawhorn, suggested that using black on a stained glass window kind of sucks. It looks bad, as you can see from here.
Yeah,
So it may have been an aesthetic choice as well.
yeah, that's an interesting thought, isn't it?
Question, Chris. You showed a letter from, I think, James Brooke to Palmerston of 1849. Was that correct? Was it James Brooke?
Yeah, this is James Brooke. The W.J. Chater wrote about this letter himself inside his theory were the blue and red cross. But if Chater read the letter, he would have read this. Yellow field with a cross per pale, red and black.
Okay. It's just I've got I'll send it through to you by email. A letter from Brooke. That didn't look like Brooke's handwriting to me.
It's way too neat for him. So
Yeah.
it's got to be, I don't know whose handwriting it is.
Certainly not. I don't think it's James Brooke, that's for sure.
It's his signature is correct. So if I don't have it loaded up here.
Okay.
Someone else wrote it and he signed it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll leave it at that. Yep.
This is 48. So it's also not St. John's writing. It's
No.
I can't figure out whose writing it is actually.
Okay.
But what I found interesting was this whole sinister hoist. I'm actually curious if James Brooke did this on purpose. There's actually a tradition with Arabic flags to be flown with a sinister hoist. So another interesting point of discussion would be if this was meant as some sort of homage to Islam.
Sorry, what do you mean by sinister horse? Actually, I'm not clear about that.
You see the flag is flying to the left. This is not the normal way flags are drawn in Western cultures. They draw them almost all going to the right. So the fact that James Brooke purposely put the flagpole on the right side and the flag flying this way, I think means something. So if you look at this is how he described the flag. He's described it as red and black, red, black. And the hoist was on the right side. So the normal way you think of looking at the Sarawak flag is like that. But if it was like this, he would have described the flag as black and red. If he's following heraldry rules, which I think he did.
Yeah, it's all a question of convention, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, and it always looks the same as the shield. So.
Thank you very much. I must admit, it's very interesting. But is there going to be an article on this anywhere that could appear in the journal?
Once I get all my stuff together.
It's very complex, but very fascinating, especially the historical quotes. It's great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's interesting. Although we only join it at the later part of your.
It's worth watching the recording.
But if you have access to land grants as well after 1929, this seal of state, I can't get a clear view of this. I think it's still the badger on top. Potentially there could be a crown. But it's possible. it's impossible to see from the scans.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but there are two versions. So one is printed, and the other one, first time they have the embossed seal, which have the crest in the middle and a round seal, and then it was the embossed seal changed to just a chalk ink. Yeah, so that might be some basis for the study of the development of the seal itself. The other thing is that earlier we have some research on the flag of Sarawak. So basically what you mentioned is that the crown only appear on the flag sometime, on the crest sometime in, if I'm not mistaken, after the colony. But I think what you mentioned that there is a picture on the 1941 centenary celebration when you can see the 5-pointed crown
Yeah.
on the flag.
I can, am I showing this?
I did one, it was called a horn of, I guess a crown is a name special name because it's just 5 horns crown or something like that. Yeah. Do you have that picture where there is at the memoriam, there's a centenary picture where the Raja was sitting, and then there is this flag.
Yeah, I know the picture, but I didn't. I'm having trouble with my screen. I don't know what's going on. Something's happened to my presentation. I can't change the page.
Oh, that's a news. Never mind.
Never mind.
Here you go.
Am I changing now? I'm changing now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. The flag itself, this is a common misconception. The crown and the flag has nothing to do with the British royalty. It has nothing to do with the Crown Colony.
Yes, we thought it was representing the 5 divisions at that time, because Sarawak get the last session, I think the Limbang division, the 5th division, sometime in the region of 1901 or 02 after the settlement. So you need to look at that picture in 1941. Before that, I'm not so sure. Between 1911 or 1901 and 1941, whether the crown did appear or not. Yeah.
No, well, I already know the answer. The Charles wrote a letter, in the same letter that Chater mentions, where he's writing about the bishop's flag for Bishop Munsey. In that letter, he gave the whole history of the flags. He said, in the 1870s, on advice of others, I added a crown to the flag. So he actually added in the 70s. And then he goes on to explain that this caused a trouble with the mission, because what happened is the flag became 2 things, a government flag and a merchant flag. But the mission was not merchant and it wasn't government, so they wanted their own flag. So if you look at the Sarawak Gazette, the mission actually gets the flag in 1871, 1st May. So this means the crown was added before 1st May, 1871.
That's interesting. Thank you very much for the information.
But
What's the rationale behind putting the crown, except for in honor of his ancestors or James Brooke?
The crown itself is called an Eastern crown, and it actually symbolizes experience in the East. So technically, it meant East Mediterranean. It meant Crusades in Jerusalem, but East could also be applied to further East, I think.
So
that's the symbolism behind it.
Your East doesn't refer to the Oriental side. It's actually east of England itself, up to Jerusalem.
East Mediterranean, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And when it was first picked, it was not intended to be the 5 districts, but it's quite possible Charles Viner did change the meaning to that. He actually did specify that the crown has 5 points. Typically, you don't need to specify 5 points for the Eastern crown. The default crown for the Eastern crown is 5 points.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, as far as I know. It's heraldry. Heraldry is weird.
You need a safety hedge in case, as far as I know, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
If you ever get a real heraldry expert, let me know.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. I'll look forward to review the YouTube recording. Thank you.
We do. I'll just say we do have a real heraldry expert who's just
good.
joined the society.
I was just thinking the same, John.
It's Dr. David Wright, principal of the Institute of Heraldic and Genealogical Studies in Canterbury.
Wow,
So I could pass you his email address, and which is principal at IHGS, but I'll send you an email. So sorry, Chris, is your emails around somewhere, is it?
Yeah, I'll send to Roger, and you guys will have it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you just joined 2 weeks ago, so that's quite nice, isn't it?
It's a good point. Yes, because he may be of immense help, in fact, in terms of the rules.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to change everything I've just said.
I don't think you will have to do that, actually.
No ego.
So, I was going to say, might worthwhile, John, while you're emailing Roger, also suggest that he emails our heraldry man and suggests he watch the video as well.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, because that would then give him a heads up on what he's likely to be asked.
It will, won't it? Yes. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy story.
It's a great story.
Oh, it's a superb story. Absolutely. Yes.
Lots of blind alleys and crossings back, and yeah, it's great.
I never know what I was going to run into.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Right. So, is there any more questions, chaps? Otherwise, we perhaps ought to bring this to a conclusion. Anything else hovering? No. Well, Christopher, I have to say, superb, really, really excellent presentation. Well done, and thank you very much. And I'm sure that we'll have you'll have a small flurry of additional information heading in your general direction. And if we can activate our heraldry expert as well, that may help even more. So
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Well done. Thank you, everybody. Right. Okay, chaps. If I can work out how to do this, I will press the go button and we will all depart. Lovely to see you all again. Sorry that the timing screw up. It had to be on this weekend where the clocks change.
Next week will be the actual time change, not this week. Okay. All right. It's okay.
No. The time has changed this week. That's why it all got confusing.
It'll stay like that.
Started at 9 o'clock UK time, which has moved an hour forward from where it originally was. So you'll need to cross-check. I think it brings you.
I checked Google twice. Sometimes they show it is actually 4 o'clock. Sometimes they're still.
Yes. It's a hiccup, isn't it? Next week should be fine. I think it's 4 o'clock your time from here on in.
But 4 o'clock is the previous time actually. No change. We have been on 4 o'clock previously.
Oh,
but I'll put the time and see what.
Oh yes, cross check. We're on British summertime now.
Okay, all right, no issue. Maybe I'll come in 1 hour.
just to check where we are. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you
Bye.
again. Thank you again, Christopher. That was really appreciated. Okay. Au revoir, everyone. Right.
All right. Well, see you later. See you on Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Malcolm. Yeah. Bye
Yes.
now.
See you on Monday. Okay. Cheers, chaps.